Hi, I'm Mike from Quantum Integration. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to show you how to modify a Sunfounder Pi Car-S to work with the Quantum IoT platform. If you already have a Pi Car-S, go ahead and assemble it to the point where you've done all the mechanicals and installed the circuit boards. We'll go through step by step how to modify the wiring to work with the builder base. Also, you'll need a Quantum joystick controller. If you haven't built this project yet, go ahead and build it. Or you can also just wire up a joystick to a builder base, and all that information is in the object reference. Okay, let's get started. So for step one, take the motor wires and attach them to the right and left motors on the motor driver board. Connect the motor driver board PWM A and B, which is J4, to the PWM servo board on ports 4 and 5. Next, connect the servo driver board power J18 to the robot hat power J10. Connect the servo cable from the servo to PWM 0 on the PWM servo driver board. Note that the darker wire is the ground and the lighter wire is the signal. Don't reverse these. Next, set up a couple terminal blocks like I did here to connect all the power and grounds. I used a solderable breadboard from Adafruit and just cut it to size. You could use wire nuts or anything else that's practical. I found this was easy to mount and it made a clean installation. So let me just set that here. Insert a 5-wire connector from the motor driver board J1, and you're going to connect a number of jumpers here. So power and ground go to the power and ground terminal blocks. The yellow wire goes to the PWM servo driver over here, pin 7. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to connect the white wire to PWM 6 on the PWM servo board. Now let's move on to the next connector. Insert a 4-wire connector into J16 of the PWM servo driver board. You'll see here we connect the white wire to the builder base SCL pin. We'll connect the yellow wire to the builder base SDA pin, and that's this one here. We'll also connect the power and grounds to our terminal block. Next, insert a 5-wire connector into the robot hat motor port J11 and connect the following jumpers. We're going to connect ground to the ground terminal block. We're going to connect the first red wire to the ground power block. We're going to ignore the second red wire, and that's all we have to do. So with that, we're done wiring the entire kit. Let's put it together and start it up. Okay, so now I've got the little platform for the builder base put back on, and we're going to power it up and make sure everything works. So the power switch right here, turn it on. You'll see on the robot hat, there's 2 LEDs there. One LED is the system power, the other LED is for the I2C bus. You need both of them on to know that it's working correctly. Your builder base should be blinking green, or depending on how it's been programmed, it may be a solid green. But either way, you need to see a light. Also on the PWM servo board, we see that there's 2 green lights there. One green light is that the board has power. The second green light is that the I2C bus has power. So make sure you have all these 5 lights on before we go any farther. If you have any problems, check your connections. Sometimes if you're using breadboards, the power and ground connections can be kind of touchy. So with that, let's go ahead and build our firmware. Okay, now it's time to build firmware. Let's go to the main page of your Quantum Q server. And we're going to go and look at our clients that are online. Make sure you have your Pi Car and your joystick powered up. We'll go ahead and click the Clients button. Now we see that we have one paired device, which is the proxy. And we also have 2 unpaired devices, which are our Pi Car and joystick. So we'll see these. We'll go to the first one. We will pair it. Okay, now we're going to close that and we're going to pair the other one. And I'll show you why we don't do this setup right away. Okay, so now that we have the devices paired, let's go to the Paired tab and we see that we have 2 new clients here. To know which client is which, we go to the Actions button and select Identify. Now, one of the builder bases will blink red a couple times, and that'll tell you which device you're looking at. So in this case, the first one is the joystick. And the second one, we'll verify this one, blinks, and this is the car. So now we go to Edit, the first device, which is the joystick. And we'll call it joystick so we know what it is. And we'll add a room just for fun. We'll go to the other builder base and we'll call that one Pi Car. And make it the living room. And hit save. Now we can see that we have 2 devices, the joystick and the Pi Car. Now that we know that the devices are there, let's go ahead and write firmware. In this list, we see the joystick has already been built from our previous project, so we're going to use that one. The new one we want to create is to control the builder base on the Pi Car. So we'll say create new. We'll give it a name, Pi Car. We're going to add hardware. We know that we have a servo that is for the steering. We know that we have a motor for the right wheel. And we also have one for the left wheel. So now that we've added the hardware to our firmware file, we're going to go in and adjust all the settings to describe exactly what we have it hooked up to. So we know that the servo is connected to the PWM servo board, which uses this chip, the PCA chip. And we know that the default I2C address is 40 and we're on channel 0. The right and left motors are done in a similar way, but we're going to use the driver that's called the PCA speed and direction. We use this because we use 1 pin for the speed and 1 pin for the direction. That's how the hardware motor driver board works on the Pi Car. So we'll select that, and we know that pin 4 is the speed pin and pin 6 is the direction pin. And now we'll do the same for the left wheel. and we'll select the same PCA speed direction driver. I2C address 40. The speed pin is 5 and the direction pin is 7. Okay, so now we've got all our settings set for the different hardware on the Pi Car builder base. So we'll hit save. And now we have our firmware. We want to upload it to the Pi Car. So we'll select the Pi Car. We'll say upload. And we're going to upload to the Pi Car. We see our status on the right. We'll have to wait a few moments for the firmware to be compiled on the cloud and downloaded to the builder base. Now let's upload the joystick firmware file. Now we're ready to write our application. Click on the Apps button on the left side of the screen and create a new application, and we'll call it Pi Car. First thing we want to do is put the hardware on our canvas that we're going to use. So under hardware, we know that we have 2 joysticks. We're only going to use one, but we'll put them in anyways just to be complete. 2 joysticks. Now we know that we have a servo hardware. We'll add that here. And we have 2 motors. The right motor and the left motor. Now, to make this easy to read, we have to name these objects so they make sense to us. Otherwise, things will get confusing later. So the joystick, we'll call this one the right joystick. I do that by clicking on the object, going to the Properties panel, and changing the default name. So we'll call this one right. And we say Save Properties. We'll go to this one, call it left. Save Properties. We'll go to this servo, call it steering. We'll go to this object. This is the right motor. And the left motor. Now we're going to control everything with the right joystick. We're going to ignore the left joystick for this. You can use it for something else in another project if you want to add a little more features to this. The right joystick is a joystick we're going to use to control the car. The x-axis will control the steering, and the y-axis will control the speed. Connecting the x-axis directly to steering will work, but we have one issue with this that I'm going to explain to you. When we use the joystick, we go from a value that's 0 to 4096. When I connect that directly to a servo, that becomes a servo from 0 degrees to 180. Our Pi Car really doesn't have that full range. So we only want to go from 60 degrees to 120 degrees. The way we do that is through a code object called ranging. Manual ranging. Okay, so I put that here, and that's going to do our conversion for us. Our input range is from 0 to 4095, which is the range of the entire joystick. And our output range is going to be from 60 degrees to 120 degrees. This will give us much better steering performance. Okay, and so the x-axis input goes into value, and the output port on the range mapping goes to degrees. Now we connect the y-axis. I'll just make some room here. Now we want to connect the y-axis to both motors. So we'll take the input port of joystick axle for both motors, which gives you bidirectional based on your joystick input. Simple enough. We connect both of these. We save the app. Go back to our apps list. Now we're ready to run. So when we hit the start button, we're going to have something called a mapping screen. The mapping screen is how we map a specific piece of hardware on a builder base to a hardware object in the application. It's pretty straightforward. We just click left. We know that it's the joystick left. And now we go to right, which is joystick right. The servo is the Pi Car steering. The right motor is Pi Car right wheel. And the left motor goes to Pi Car left wheel. And now we're done. We're ready to run. And there you have it. That's all you need to do to add the Sunfounder Pi Car-S to the Quantum IoT platform. Now we're ready to go outside and play with it. Okay, here we are. We got the car, and this is a joystick kit I'd like to tell you about. We have a DIY kit that has the PCB and all the parts you need to build your own joystick. And we also give you the files for the 3D printed case. So if you're interested, check our website. We have them available soon. So, all right, we'll just set that guy down. And forward, turn, back. Piece of cake.